Welcome to the block, y'all. The Leon block, that is. I'm your host, Jontel E. Tolan. Thank you for joining in. We're here. Knowledge is soul, so go be great. Today on the show, we have Teddy M Vasquez, Manheim Township candidate for school board, also activist, advocate, organizer, graphic designer. Little tidbit, he's helped lead a team for the Biden campaign that made over 1 million calls last year. So he does a lot of really great things, and he's always active in what's going on in the area. Thank you for joining us, Teddy.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the kind introduction, man. That was great.
Of course, dope ass friend of mine and friend of the Leon block. We've done discussions and stuff before, but it's been a while. And at some point, again, I'm going to have you on the show just so we can, spitball stuff and just, talk off ideas and things. But for now, the topic tonight is about, learning during the pandemic and with a special attention to schooling, how schooling is affected, how it affects certain demographics, and also talking about why you are running for school board. So the first question I will ask you are, what issues are you experiencing as a parent with your kids in your township with the local school district?
I mean, overall, like what I'm experiencing most of right now is, everyone is stressed out with COVID. Everyone knows that. We all are. Our kids are definitely feeling it. Our teachers are feeling the pressure. Everyone has. And I think that we're at the point right now where it's actually starting to affect us on a physical part. As we all know, the mind and the body are connected as one. The body communicates in body language, and we communicate in our own languages, but the body knows what it needs. And yeah, it's just simply like with the issues that we have seen here, especially like with bullying. There's also have been issues of racial tension here as well. If you remember, we had the pool incident last year as well, or 2019 actually. 2020 just feels like it just went by, even though it lasted forever.
It lasted like 10 years.
Yeah. But yeah, we have all these different issues in this case, and I just want to be able to be present and also make myself more available. I feel that a lot of the elected officials, well, they are available, but it depends on who you're reaching out to. I want to make sure that doesn't matter whether whether you voted for me or not, I should still be more than eager to meet you and want to know where you're coming from with your concerns and your issues.
I want to ask another follow-up question to that. Like, do you see other members on the school board that are concerned as well about, the murky territory that we're experiencing right now with schooling and making sure that kids are keeping up with grades and staying safe as well? Do you see other school board members that are just as concerned?
They definitely are. I'm not saying that they're not as concerned. I just think that the majority are not as concerned. Mm-hmm. For one, I would say Joanne Hentz, for example. I say that she is one of my favorites on the board because of the fact that she stood up for the teachers. Teachers were not even brought into the conversation when it came into what they were going to do with shutting down. They were not taken into consideration. With one of the surveys that was done by PSEA, I forget which one, but it was either MTA or PSEA, but there was a survey that was put out to all the teachers, and simply put, just when it came to planning for this current school year, 97% of teachers felt that 1 week was not enough. And we know that for a fact. This is a completely different animal we're dealing with. This is not a regular day at school we're dealing with. There's a lot of things that we got to take into consideration. And I feel that not enough was taken into consideration.
Okay. All right. What do you see or hear about people of color being affected by the pandemic?
For townships specifically, I really don't have an idea. To be honest, in this case, I haven't had the time to actually research the information. But just simply, if we're looking at it from a national or a state perspective, like, there's things like income inequality, violence, and all this other stuff that we're dealing with already that do contribute to the vulnerability of our immunity. You know what I mean? Like, we become more vulnerable the more stressed we are. And like I was saying, COVID is real, and we actually are right now. Like, I think that we're at that point where we're starting to actually see the side effects of the mental health issues that we're dealing with as well with COVID.
Are you getting have you experienced like some parents that are still deniers of this pandemic?
Not too many. I mean, definitely earlier on, there were a few here and there, but not anything that was directed towards me, like in a conversation directly with me. More of people who feel like, hey, like, yes, it is something that should be taken serious, but it's okay if the kids go to school because the kids don't get it. But we know that is not a fact. That was the first thing that was put out, was that kids don't get it. Well, no, they're just asymptomatic, most of them.
Right. You have 6 girls. Do you see and foresee issues brought on not only by the pandemic, but being home and having online classes?
First off, I do want to say the teachers do a phenomenal job in this case of keeping the kids engaged and even being mindful of the kids' mental well-being in this case. They do reach out. I get constant emails for all of my kids on that are in school right now, and it's at different levels. You know what I mean? Like our twins they're in first grade. We're getting information from them in this case of how they're doing in their classes, or what's next on their class, or when there's pickup days and things like that. But definitely, I do say the social aspect for them, especially at their age, like their kindergarten was cut short. You know what I mean? Like they were probably in school for half of the school year, and then March came in, everything locked down. So they didn't have that super social experience that we all have, at least that I remember having when I was a kid. So like that's one of the biggest things that I see, and it goes into a lot of more developmental stuff when it comes to like problem solving with others, working in unison with your whole team. These are skills that you normally learn in a more socialized environment. And while I do say that like sports are important to these things, sports is not the way to do it with COVID. And we should definitely be aware and mindful of that as well.
I definitely agree with that. I know that was a loaded question, and there's so much to cover on that topic because there's so many. I personally think the cons outweigh the pros, but I'm also not a parent that's experiencing this and speak on the topic. But from stuff I've been gathering and seeing and news articles and things, and just being mindful of what's going on in the environment that we're in today, I could imagine that there are a lot of issues just concerning like mental health and routine. And as far as teachers go, I can't imagine like what they're going through.
Oh yeah. I mean, many of them have family members that live, with them that already maybe immunocompromised, you know what I mean? And not to mention, many of them also have kids that they also are learning online right now. So, we are looking at all these different dynamics. And I think that, you know what, I do want to, before I was going to say, I think that there's a better way of being able to do this. That wasn't what we did. But I wanted to go back and just kind of another thing that does come to mind other than with the routine also is like the physical activity. Kids are not going outside as much. They're not hanging out outside because of the fact that we're all socially distancing. Yeah. I myself has been very difficult for me to even get outside to run. I did it maybe like 4 times in December. But before that, I didn't do it the entire year. You know what I mean? I'm finally trying to get into that routine and trying to build it into my time management with everything else that I'm working on. But it is something that definitely has impacted our kids as well. They're not getting the exercise or the fresh air that they need.
Yeah, even us as adults are, with the pandemic, are having a hard time getting out. And I myself, I keep saying, like, today I haven't been outside today. I got to get outside and get some fresh air. I think that, just with the way that society has gone anyway, with kids being more susceptible to technology and video games and things, social media, they're not really going outside and, doing things, outdoor activities as much. But I think that
we're getting it in.
Right, exactly. And now it's just kind of reduced it to like a bare minimum. And I was watching a Coatesville city council meeting the other day, and they were talking about how throughout the whole pandemic thus far, they didn't want to put the hoops up in the basketball court of the main park because they were afraid of too many kids congregating and playing basketball, but they're out there anyway. So they might as well provide them with that leisure, that opportunity of that type of leisure activity, so they can at least do something. What I was getting at was, if the kids don't have as many activities, especially outdoors, not only is it affecting them mentally, but they're not getting, we're seeing a number of suicides increasing with kids and even children because of this pandemic, and not being able to be around their friends and discuss things socially and express things like they normally would. So, and then, there's gangs, and there are gangs that are fighting because they don't have anything else to do.
Right now, the biggest thing right now that I say with gangs and gang related violence is the simple fact that you have to do what you have to do to survive. And if you lost your job and you didn't get unemployment because of whatever reason, or you didn't qualify for this or that, like, what else are you supposed to do? I'm not saying that it's okay for them to do it, but seriously, like, the reason why we have those issues is because we don't have the resources there to help them in the first place.
Agreed. I completely agree. It doesn't excuse the fact, but it coming from environments where you have been put in situations where you're just thinking about your survival, one can only relate to another being put in a situation where they do certain things. And there are a lot of misled teens and teens that really don't have outlets, that especially, it was already hard for them prior to the pandemic. And now that the pandemic has been here for close to a year, we're seeing astronomical levels of violence among youth, suicide levels increasing. So, those are just two of the issues that we're dealing with when it comes to issues stemming from the nature of schooling changing. I want to ask you, what do you seek to change? And by the way, congratulations for your run for Manheim Township School Board. So, what you, as a potential as a future school board member, what do you seek to change?
Well, there's a couple of different things that I see that need change and need addressing. Number one, I would say, is definitely the diversity among the school board. That's part of the reason as to why I'm running. I feel that if we're going to have a school board to represent our community, then our school board should look like our community. And we have the second largest population in Manheim Township is the Latinx community. You know what I mean? So we are the second, we're the fastest growing population and also the second. So like, we have those two things, and we don't have anyone on our board to represent us. That's why I wanted to do this. Also for my kids, you know what I mean? Like that's the other reason why I wanted to do this. But there's the other parts that I want to change. And this kind of goes into what we were talking about before with the mental health issues, is we need to have more mental health professionals in our facility and more access for our kids to be able to reach those professionals. Especially with COVID. COVID has been real difficult. I myself started going to therapy in March of 2020 because of everything that was going on. And, a lot of people, Black and brown people, first of all, we don't talk about our emotions. We suppress that shit. And it's not the way that it should be. A lot more recently now, I've been expressing it more. I've been talking to my friends, to my family. Mental health is very, very important. And if you don't have those skills in place, like what else are you going to turn to, you know? And that's the reason why I want to bring them in. The other thing is also diversity within the teachers and staff as well. We don't have many people of color on our teaching staff, or even our staff in general. And also more respect for our teachers. As I said before, with I say it's a lack of respect, and like it was just like they didn't care for the teachers at all. They didn't bring them up to the table when it came to making this decision. I feel that many of the input that the teachers could have given would have been a lot easier, or would have been better at resolving the issues that they were presented with. I mean, we're the other issues that we're going to be dealing with, and this will be for later, but like one of the issues that we're dealing with is the budget. And the reason why this is an issue is because of the fact that we didn't prepare correctly. I say, at least in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. I did not look at the budget to tell you that this is where they spent the money. You know what I mean? But
it's still a fair conclusion to draw.
I mean, we were in the middle of a pandemic. They had to update all these make all these technological advancements for our kids to be able to go to school online and be at home. But there could have been something else that would have been done that would have been a lot easier. Could have been less costly in this case as well, and even be more effective. And that's where I think, like, and I'm gonna put this out there as just like a theory that I had when it came to getting kids to school and which kids should be in school and which ones shouldn't. Simply put, any kid, I would say maybe like 5th grade and up is able to stay at home on their own, because they can fend for themselves. Any kid under that age, I would say maybe they should be in school in person, because they do need those social developmental skills still to happen. And they can't fend for themselves at home. If a parent is working, if a parent has to go to work and they have a kid who's in kindergarten or 1st grade at home, they may have to quit their job. You know what I mean? Because of everything that's happening here. So like, we're looking at 2 different kinds of losses. Is the loss of a budget, like the deficit in the budget of a family or a household, and also the deficit of the school board as well. And I think that could have been handled totally different.
Now, I want to bring up a tidbit here that I saw, like that there are no vaccines for children at the moment. So like, what do you say to people that argue that they don't want their kids going back into school for risk of them getting COVID, even though they may be pressed to still have to work? It's a rock and a hard place. Personally, I think. What do you think?
It's definitely a rock and a hard place, and I can't. To be honest, I don't even know where to start with that one. I myself, I have family members in this case in Dominican Republic. My uncle, he was head of the health and safety for the entire country at one point. Right now, he's just head for a certain region. And with the things that they're dealing with on the medical side of things, there is a huge, how could I say? Well, simply a conspiracy, I would say, like is a capitalist conspiracy, because, and this totally kind of does not go with anything that we're talking about here when it comes to school board, but simply put, is just like they're saying is that the Pfizer contract for the vaccine was a contract that had the monetary interest. A lot of the Latin American countries and even South Africa yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, just approved ivermectin as a way of treating COVID. And ivermectin is not a shot, it's not an injection, it's not something you get vaccinated with. It's just pills, and you can take these. They're actually anti-parasitic drugs, and you can take them, and they have had many successes. From what I've seen, and I was doing just very quick research yesterday about it because it just happened to come into my radar. But like I was looking at, like the results in this case seem to be obscured because of the fact that they wanted this vaccine to come out. Like the WHO actually did not approve it, and neither did the NIH, because of those reasons. I say, but I could be wrong. I could be a conspiracy theorist, but
Hey, some people may label it that way, but you bring up a really good point. And given the pharmaceutical industry's big profits, it. Look, I'm not arguing with you. I actually do think that you're onto something, and I'm more inclined to actually agree with you. Um, it probably will be a good several years before we actually know for real. But I will say that is definitely probably, if I go to do my research, I'm sure that I'll find that it's probably a lot more successful than that stuff that Trump was touting did wonders for you. So I'll definitely check into that for real. But that does bring up a really good point. I'm sure that there are a number of other options out there that we're not getting put onto for whatever reason. But when it comes to kids, the whole issue surrounding schooling and the pandemic, we know that there should have been better leadership at the beginning of this pandemic. We also know the administration that we were dealing with at the time, and not completely praising this new administration and saying that they're going to do any better, because we don't know yet. But us as ordinary Americans, I'm a little disappointed, not in all of us, but in some that don't lack common sense in other areas. So I don't understand why like this topic is different. But there are a lot of people and groups that have contributed to us still being stuck in this situation. So, you know, you talk about prevention. Prevention is also a big part of things. And I think that right off the bat, like, things would be a little better right now had we took more preventative measures as ordinary citizens. Not even holding the government accountable, which we are and still are and should be, but taking that aside and just thinking about us as Americans.
Well, that kind of, it makes me think of this also. Like, if you think about local government, what is local government there for? It's actually to protect you from the federal government. You know, we have all these checks and balances for all these good reasons. If your federal government does not allow you, or says to you, hey, we're not going to give you any money if you don't open up your schools. The state then says, hey, listen, we're not going to have any money, so you do what you want to do. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, are you going to follow along those lines because we're not going to have the money? Or are you going to do the right thing and actually make sure that you still have the money that you need to be able to get through for your year? Make sure that your kids have everything that they need to get through the year. But most importantly, make sure your teachers, because they're the ones that are teaching, have everything that they need for the rest of the year. And that's simply what I say it comes down to, for me at least. You know.
What do you think needs the most improvement and attention right now in Manheim Township School District?
Well, I've already mentioned the budget, so I'm actually going to come back to that. And, you know, like, mostly it has been impacted by the cyber charter schools, and it's on their enrollment. Like, they actually had a spike in their enrollment because of COVID. But why? If you really ask yourself that question, I myself, our oldest, we had to transfer our oldest from being a Manheim Township student to a cyber charter student because of the simple fact that their tech support was not wasn't able to assist them. Like, our daughter was, yes, our daughter was behind in classes, and we kept on getting emails upon emails. I told you I get emails all the time. We get emails upon emails saying, oh, well, she hasn't submitted these things in, and if she doesn't get them in by X date, like, she won't be able to graduate. And we're like, wait a minute, but your devices don't work. You gave us 2 different iPads. Neither of those iPads work. And I actually looked at it myself. I actually went through the process myself. I've worked I used to work at Radio Shack for years. I've always been a techie my entire life. Like I know how to deal with all these devices and stuff. So I was the one who actually went in and did it when they told me the very last time. And I said, you know what? This is something on the back end. This is something that they have to do is you don't have access to this particular portal because they haven't granted it. And I kept on saying that, and they didn't resolve. So, you know, at the end of the day, my daughter still needs to graduate from high school. So what we did was we removed her from Manheim Township and had her enroll into Cyber Charter.
I want to say real quick before you answer the rest of this question that I have noticed that a lot of major towns and boroughs and municipalities that have regular public high schools are seeing a huge decline in membership. And a lot of kids are getting pulled out and put into charter schools and private schools because their online options are a lot better. And
Correct.
It is further depleting a lot of these schools' funds. But what are parents to do? Parents are kind of caught in the middle. So I definitely get where you're coming from. Go ahead.
As a parent, and this is just simply put, as a parent, you do what's best for your kids, right? So I did what was best for that specific child of mine. I moved her over to the cyber charter schools. The other ones are still on Manheim Township schools. You know what I mean? We still have four girls in our schools. It's just one that graduated. The youngest one is still not of school age. So that's why I didn't mention anything on that. But you know what I mean? Like you do what you need to do for your kids to make sure that they get the education they need. If your school is not able to help you, then you have to find the alternative yourself. I'm not saying that I to be honest, I totally hate the idea of cyber charter schools and charter schools in general, because it does take away from the public funding system, for public school funding system. And we are already underfunded as is. Township in itself is one of the best districts. It's the reason why I moved here, but we still struggle and we're still trying to fight for others to have fair funding. You know what I mean? Like that's something that is on our radar as a district that we want to do, as a board also that they want to do. It's something that when I ran in 2019, that was one of our points on our platform. And it still is not a major point on my platform, but it is still there. Like it is still something that I do say I need to protect our public school funding. But like I said before, I will not get mad if you had to move your kid because we weren't giving you the best or what your kid deserved.
At the end of the day, as you said, it's about the needs of the kids.
Right. And yeah, it's just like the other thing is, like I said before, is the diversity among the staff. Like there are plenty of parents here in Manheim Township that are great parents, are always involved. I always see the involvement here is amazing. That's the one thing I have to say. Manheim Township, all the parents are freaking awesome. And I just really feel for the kids in this case that don't have a role model in a teacher in this case, or even a principal of color. Like we don't have any of those. So again, we're back at this. I'm not trying to say that we're supposed to be always, hey, well, there's a person of color, whether they have the credentials or not, let's get them in. No, that's not the way I see it. But we definitely need to start thinking outside of the box as to how you can recruit people who want to work here, who live here. It's a great community to live in. You know what I mean? Like I said before, and I always say in all of my speeches, is Manheim Township is the only place I've ever felt at home since moving from New York City. And I did that in 2002. You know what I mean? So like, I've only been here for 4 years now, and I've never felt more at home than I have here.
That's awesome. So this is definitely a place that you want to invest yourself in, and that you take this area seriously. You want to be a part of the change and the growth. I would like to think that that's another motivator and drive as to one of the many reasons why you are running for school board. But I'm going to go ahead and ask, why you?
Well, for everything that I stated above, plus the fact that I am a jack of all trades and I like to work. I don't twiddle my thumbs at a desk and just watch other people work around me. I work, and if you're in my way, I'm gonna work around you.
I know that's right.
I'm an advocate, man. Like that's what we do. Organizer. I've been doing union work and worker right work since 2016 or 2017. So since then, I have actually been out here just like pounding the streets, canvassing, talking with everyone, not only here in township, but seriously throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I've been as far up as Erie and as far south as Gettysburg. You know what I mean? Talking to people, visiting other county assistance offices when I used to work for the county assistance office back in the day.
I think that also gives you a notch on your belt for understanding many different communities and the struggles that we're enduring, especially during this pandemic.
Well, yeah, and I mean, growing up in Harlem, which is like one of the things I always bring up is like growing up in Harlem was difficult as it was in the 90s. I can't imagine what it's like right now. I don't live there right now, and I really feel for my family and friends that are there. Like COVID has really affected my hometown in this case terribly. Right now, the gun violence has been skyrocketing over there, and I don't want to see that happening here. You know what I mean? Like we need to start working ourselves and making ourselves more available to the public. We need to be able to have more conversation with one another. Whether we disagree, we will always disagree. What we have to do is find a way to compromise on those disagreements. You know what I mean? And it's not compromising yourself. It's, you know, what can we give so we can get more?
I like that.
I mean,
yeah.
Solidarity stuff, man. Like, you know, you got to show your strength in numbers, and you have to bargain for it. You know what I mean?
Hey, love, thanks for joining us. No, you're good. You can catch anytime. You can rewind, check it out whenever. This information here is for everybody just to take a hold of and relate to and think about and discuss with other people, you know. Real quick, I have like two more questions for you, but there's an article you found about Manheim Township School Board sees growing deficit. You want to talk a little more about that?
Sure. Well, this is what I was talking in regards to the cyber charter schools and how that deficit has been increased. Increased in this case. Let me pull it up here. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Yeah. So in this is the article. Yeah, this is where we're talking about the deficit that we had. It was a $3.9 million deficit. To be closer to $6 million due to the rise in health insurance costs and an increase in the cyber charter school enrollments. So like this is a combination of all these things. You know what I mean? So this is where our deficit has been coming from, and in this case is how are we going to protect it or better it? In this case, I don't have a solid plan, to be honest. I don't know. I don't have a solid plan as to what we have to do, but I do know that we have the resources available to be able to come up to a determination that will work for all of us. And that's simply it. It's like we need a school board that's working for all of us at all times.
I think it's important to acknowledge, like, you know, I don't have all the answers, but it's out there somewhere, and I would like to, you know, ask people to join me in helping find those answers. There's nothing wrong with that. I think when elected officials or entities, coalitions, committees, whatever, like to stick to what they know, how is anything going to change? You know, like come up with new ideas or say, I don't know, we don't know what we're doing here, but let's get more help, you know, and that part of that is being more inclusive and adding more people of color, adding more groups that are different from the homogenous mixture that is currently there, or in any entity?
Well,
Speaking for any.
we have actually we have a majority of females, I believe, on the board, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just count in my head. Yes, we do. There's Joanne, Nikki Rivera, Joy Stevens, Sarah Grosh, and Janet Carroll. Am I missing someone? No, that is the majority, I believe. Oh, and April Weaver is also on the school board. So yeah, we have 6 females on the school board. Who I do say, like, I always love powerful women. That's the one thing that I always say. I'm a feminist at heart, and there's no way I can take that back. I've always been one of the girls.
Oh my goodness. I will say that I agree. Like, you're a very much open individual that does listen, especially when it comes to women. And I want to ask though, how many are on the school board in total?
There are 9 members on the board plus the one superintendent. So it's basically is team of 9 plus 1 is what we call it.
All right. So I want to ask, what sets Manheim Township apart from say Lancaster, for example?
I mean, mainly I would say that is our what our communities look like. I mean, everything in the city of Lancaster, you can walk to certain places, which in this case, in township, it'll be difficult for a person who does not have a vehicle to get anywhere. You know what I mean? There's barely any public transportation here to begin with. So like that's actually one of the biggest differences, I say, between Lancaster and township. Is the fact that we don't have walking ways to walk anywhere. Like, we have major roads on every turn, or highways. You know what I mean?
That is true. What
I do love. Wait, I do want to say I do love the farmland here. That's
really?
the one thing. Yeah, and the reason why is actually because my parents, being from Dominican Republic, like where they're from, is actually one of the most agriculturally, like, well, one of the areas of largest agricultural. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't even say the word right now. But yeah. So like it always reminds me of just going back to Dominican Republic, like just simply like the smells of the manure, like simply. Even going down to the farm and getting, or to the farmers market and getting things out here. There's a couple of farms that have little shops outside, and that also reminds me of DR. Like, you can go down a road in DR and find a stand in the middle of nowhere, and they're selling coconut and whatever, whatever they have, whatever they grow. So that's like one of the things that I really, really love about here, is the fact that you have access to a lot of the fresh foods that are available. And
I
it
dig
always
that.
takes me back.
I love your love for your region, where you currently live, and I love your correlation between like where you were born and raised. So, I find that in itself, like for me personally, I can't vote for you, but I'm telling other people they should vote for you just based off of that.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, you definitely seem to care about your local community and bettering that community, and that's something that's commendable. Not only that, but anyone offering a change in something, or just providing another way of looking at it, or solutions, or any of all of the three, is something that people really should take the time to listen to and see what they can do to contribute to that, or what they can do to learn from what you're even talking about. Um, yeah. So what can we all do to ensure our youth are set up to excel as best as we can provide them in these trying times?
Well, I mean, as a parent, the one thing is patience. It's patience goes a very long way. and trying to help kids during this time while you're also trying to do work yourself definitely needs a lot of patience. And also like understanding. That's simply is patience and understanding is really what it comes down to. And oh, well, at least from the parent side, like, you know, this is what I want to give to my kids, what I give to my kids, and what I say any parent should give to theirs is the patience and understanding. Help them out as best you can. Also have them refer, like, you know, tell them not to be afraid of their teachers. Like, ask your teachers questions. You know, they're accessible through a device this time. They're not there in person, but at least you know that you can reach out to them still. And that would be like more for our younger kids who in this case would probably be shy or don't even know how to. But then the other part that I say is, especially for our kids that are in high school on their way either to college or whatever career path they choose to do, is support them in whatever they feel their child is saying that they want to do. You know, talk with them as much back and forth, have as much conversation as possible about what it is. The biggest mistake you can do is get into something and then owe money for something that you're not ever going to touch. You know what I mean? I went to school and got my degree for graphic design, and it took me 10 years to actually get to where I am, that I'm actually freelancing right now. You know, 10 years, like it's not an easy task, and I still owe money. You know what I mean? Like, if it would have been something that I would have been able to have a conversation with a parent, in this case, my parents being from Dominican Republic and also knowing very limited English, it was hard for me to have those conversations with my parents. But since we are all here, most of us do speak English fluently here in Township. And even if you don't, like, there's resources out there to help. But definitely have those conversations with your kids. Let them know that you're available to them, and that there are growing adults, whether they're 18 or not, they're still going to be maturing into this adulthood. And you have to tell them, like, this is your decision. Are you sure this is what you want to do? Support them as much as they say that they're going to do it, and let them do it, you know?
I like that answer. I dig it. So I think those are the questions I have for you. I did have another question, but I forgot it. So it's all good. But I wanted to talk a little bit about like what you do besides work. Well, you know, the main work, but you do a lot of freelance work. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I've been doing graphic design pretty much since high school. The high school that I went to in New York City was graphic communication arts, and I was on my path into that area. It wasn't until I moved to Pennsylvania, all that shit kind of went to hell, and then I had to find another way into that same realm. But I finally found my way into it, and I've actually, right now, I am contracted with SEIU doing some of SEIU Local 668, which is my union, my brothers and sisters out there, doing some video editing. Some of they're doing a digital campaign, and I'm the one that's helping them with all of that. I've also have volunteered for Manheim Township Dems. I've volunteered with Lancaster Stands Up, doing graphic design work. I've done work for the Labor Council, the Berks Labor Council. I've done work for plenty of different campaigns from Lancaster to York, Reading, Lebanon, flyers. All, like you mentioned it, for political stuff. Like I've done a lot of it: logo design, flyers, mailers, the ones that you hang on the doors. Actually, I remember I had this thing here. Let me see if I can find it quick. Sorry. Maybe not. I had this. I just realized that I had one of these flyers from the Jess King campaign that I actually translated. That was one of the first things I ever did with Lancaster Stands Up. I translated it into Spanish. Same exact thing. I didn't mess too much with the graphic. I kind of left it as is and made a Spanish version of a mailer. But then my most recent is, and probably my favorite project is this. is the first book that I've ever designed a cover for. This is actually from one of my union sisters. Her name is Willow Ford. She goes by W.A. Ford for when you're looking for her. You can find her book actually on Amazon. But yeah, this book was the first one I've ever designed. And man, I just have to say it's still like surreal to be able to say like, hey, I'm holding one of my own books.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. No, that's exciting. It's empowering. But it also talks to the kind of person you are, the things you're involved in, how different the things you're involved in are, but also how it all ties together to showcase the kind of person you are, just a person that's fighting for change, someone that's extremely creative and can offer another creative viewpoint to that change. So I, for one, like I said, if I lived in Manheim Township, you would have my vote for school board. But as a fellow running mate, you definitely have my support and my back, brother. And I'm extremely excited for your journey. I'm also extremely proud of you. And I enjoyed questions. You gave you gave some thorough answers. And I hope this gets people to like think a little more about decisions that they make when it comes to their children. And thinking about the children, but also that was my question. The teachers as well. The children and the teachers need to be thought about the most.
Right.
And so my question as far as teachers, what would what kind of like quick solutions off the top of your head would you think of as far as like offering solutions for teachers or helping their situation as far as like this situation, if that makes sense?
Well, I mean, simply put, like for me, I've like I said, I'm a union member, and for me, it's like, you know, we have contracts. There's a reason why there's contracts with unions, and we have to respect those contracts. And right now, I understand that COVID is a completely different animal, and things went out the window for whatever reason. But nonetheless, their teachers are the ones that are on the front line. You don't go and tell a nurse, well, maybe you do. I don't know. I don't own a hospital, so maybe you do just tell a nurse like, hey, go out there and do your job, without telling her exactly what the heck she's doing, or he or she is doing. But simply put, is that the people who actually know what's happening are the people that are on the front line, the people who are out there doing the work. If you think about just simply with all the chaos that we're going through with the PPE stuff, for hospitals and medical workers, most of them were nurses on the front line who were complaining about what they don't have. You didn't hear that from the CEO telling you that they don't have that. You heard it from the people that are on the ground. And that's simply what it comes down to. Our teachers are the ones that are on the ground. Whatever they need it. They need it, simply put. If we would have brought them to the table, they probably would have had a better solution for us, or maybe would have been able to work something else out that would have been a little bit easier. And that simply is what it comes down to. Our teachers are teachers for a reason. You know what I mean? They're educators. They know what they need to do to educate their kids, and they know their kids in their classroom specifically. So they know what they need for their kids.
I see I brought out some passion in you because I've talked about teachers and you just went in. But this is why I think that you're a great fit for school board, because that should be the focal point of conversations, teachers and students. That's what makes up schools, you know, and parents as well, of course.
There's definitely a lot more into it. And like, just the staff in general for the schools. We need to make sure that we're thinking about everyone that's working in the buildings and taking them into consideration. We can't just do things because this is what we feel will work or may save us money. At the end of the day, even if it's saving you money, you might end up losing more. You might end up losing a teacher. We already lost a teacher to the virus. You know what I mean? And how many retired? You know, that's another part. There were plenty of teachers that retired because of the way that this was being handled. It wasn't for any other reason. The same exact reason why all these kids got transferred into cyber charter schools. You know, so it all comes down to the same one single point. Nobody liked how that was being handled.
Wow.
The other thing with teachers, to me, though, is that teachers, I have plenty of family members that are teachers. I have close cousins, uncles that are teachers, but most importantly, like my fourth grade teacher is my biggest influence in my political views, especially when it comes down to our when it comes to, oh geez, now I lost my word, civil rights movements. He was actually very good at telling his story from his perspective. He was just a teenager when the civil rights movements were happening, but his parents were very active. So like he talked about from his perspective and all the shit that his family went through, you know, in the 50s and 60s. And it's crazy because here we are, it's 2021 and we're still fighting for the same exact shit. So that's the reason why I definitely, I love teachers for that reason, especially if you have a teacher that can teach from their experiences on top of their curriculum. Those are the best ones. They're all great.
And unfortunately, a lot of, go ahead.
I just said they're all great, but those are the best ones.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely agree. All of our teachers definitely are to be cherished, but the ones that tie in experience and tie in compassion and understanding, you know, the ones that don't forget in your adulthood, you know, those are the ones we cannot lose. But we also need many more of them. And how are we to get any more of them if situations like last year continue to happen? You know, so at least hopefully this showed enough for enough people to say, okay, we can't have this anymore. We got to go forward and you know, double down and make changes, make things right, so that we don't have to fight tooth and nail to get more teachers to apply.
Right.
Because I can see that being a big.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
All right, brother. So I think that was all the questions I had for you. Is there anything you have for me? Anything you have for people watching? Any last thoughts you want to talk about or say?
Just a last thought, actually. This is just kind of like to all the just a message to everyone. You know, you have to remember that we are all beings of emotion. Something that I more recently learned, and this has been going to therapy and stuff. We always think that that human beings are thinkers that sometimes have feelings, but it's the other way around. You know, our emotions is what we mostly have, and we think occasionally. So just always keep that in mind. Emotions are very, like, you have to be mindful of people's emotions. You got to meet them where they're at. And if we really want to be able to be a better as a community, better as a country, or just better as an individual, you have to start by being able to understand where somebody else is coming from and giving them that chance to even tell their story.
I completely 1,000,000% agree with that. And you couldn't have said it any better, my brother. All right, y'all. So
Thanks,
it's time
bro.
to wrap this down. Thank you for supporting the Leon Block as usual. I want y'all to know y'all can always like, follow, share, and subscribe to my platforms. Of course, Leon Block on Facebook, also the Leon Block channel on YouTube, and my podcast with my brother Bamzino, Anarchist Newsletter on Spotify. Twitter is coming up next. And that is it for today, y'all. Thanks for supporting Leon Block. Go be great and make it a good one.